Hi everybody, John Hand here, Pulsing Cinema, you know the deal. I thought I would kind of do a little bit of a throwback Thursday here and kind of give you a heads up on a film festival that took place, or I guess you'd call it more of a movie marathon that took place in March of 2013. The AGFA Endangered Fest. Now, why am I talking about the AGFA Endangered Fest right now in February 2015? I am talking about it right now because tomorrow there will be a sequel to the AGFA Endangered Fest, appropriately titled the AGFA Endangered Fest II. So right now I'm reviewing a movie marathon, 4 films. One, just a crash course, a smorgasbord of lost, unusual, strange films. And I probably confused you within this 1 minute that I've been talking so far. Maybe to the point that you're pushing stop on the video right now. What is AGFA? What is the Endangered Fest? What is going on? What is happening? Why do I need to know about this? Well, in a nutshell, it is a series, is a movie marathon of films thought to be lost to time, thought to have been extinct, and suddenly a print appears in an archive, possibly the AGFA archive, is pulled out, examined, and thrown on the screen for our approval or dismissal. Now, I mean, it's a way to, I mean, the original Endangered Fest was one of the most, as someone who's really into weird old movies and unusual stuff, and I always kind of, when I rewatch a film, like I want to rewatch Reanimator or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Alien, I'll be like, you know what? I could spend this time watching something I've never seen before, something unusual, something out there. So I'm definitely adventurous, exploratory, and for the adventurous cinephile, this AGFA Endangered Fest was just like, what the hell is going on? It took place in Austin, Texas, at the Alamo Drafthouse. It was I guess you could call a co-production between AGFA, which is not the film company. This stands for the American Genre Film Archive, which is a non-profit that has come together in order to preserve these type of science fiction, fantasy, grind. Basically, it's kind of a non-profit organization for grindhouse films. And it's a film archive, and they've basically, a lot of the people behind the Draft House bought a bunch of film prints, and they wanted to have a way to store them and a way to protect them, and it's basically kind of an offshoot of this, a film archive that was bore out of finding a lot of really old film prints, a film print which may be the only existing film print for a movie. And a lot of these Endangered Fest titles are that. So they've got the film prints, but then there's also this guy, Chris Bajali, who is the co-creator of the Temple of Schlock, which you may not know about that. Temple of Schlock was a zine, just a fanzine from the late 80s and early 90s, I believe. And it's something I never personally read an issue of the Temple of Schlock, but I knew of it. I know in the Gore Zone article on fanzines, they were, I think, showcased. Again, it was this kind of group of people, of film fans in the Northeast, who were exposed to 42nd Street, who were exposed to the kind of incredibly strange films that were being shown in New York in the 70s and the 80s, and they were writing about it, and we're still reading what they're writing about it. Films that were from all over the country, all over the world, and it's still interesting stuff. And so the Temple of Schlock was a fanzine. They're now on a blog at templeofschlock.blogspot.com, I believe. Didn't check my references before doing this video. But anyway, one of the things that Pajali, and Chris Pajali is I guess the primary editor of that Temple of Schlock blogspot. One of the features of that website is what he calls an endangered list, which is kind of like an endangered species list for films. Films that there may be one film print existing somewhere, but otherwise a film that is in danger of becoming extinct. Of all film prints, stuff that's not really on video, stuff that is maybe on a beaten up, battered film print in some corner of a film archive like the AGFA's archive, but otherwise films that are in danger of becoming lost to time. So the Endangered Fest was a way to showcase some of these entries on his endangered film list, and get these things out and get them shown. The 4 films, one night, starting at 1 a.m. and then stretching. I have a picture I took after the fest ended, and it was at 7:30 a.m. So it's like we're walking into the light after this night or morning of exploitation, softcore sex movies, blaxploitation. It was an incredible experience, and I hope the Endangered Fest Part 2 is as cool as the original one. So okay, so enough of my jabbering about an experience that you probably didn't go through. You didn't go to the Endangered Fest, but in any case, let me go in and review the 4 films of the Endangered Fest, because these 4 movies were just like beautiful. I mean, it really shows the talent of a programmer to put together this type of film program, because it was just the right mix of WTF and then the old familiar favorites, the old familiar genres, because none of the films were I didn't know any of these films, to be honest. The festival started off with the real discovery, The Astrologer, Craig Denney's The Astrologer. Craig Denney, the writer, producer, director, lead star of the film. It's I don't know if this is kind of loaded deck, if Lars Nilsson and Pajali and the people behind it knew that this film was going to have such an impact and freak out the people who saw it. Because at the beginning they're like, well, we don't know, we're looking at the print, and it almost feels like they wanted to make an impact with this first film, because they made it look, well, we don't know if this movie's going to be great, we've got 3 other films, you might like those films. No. The Astrologer was the discovery of the night, that one of the best film of the night, bar none, and it's difficult to even describe The Astrologer. And subsequently AGFA's they did a Kickstarter to preserve The Astrologer, and they've done a new high-definition film scan of the thing and preserved it, and they've shown it subsequently at a bunch of different draft house locations here in Austin, and I think nationwide they've shown it at different draft houses. So The Astrologer is a... it's even difficult how to describe this film. It's like it's an action adventure. It feels, it's very much like Massacre Mafia style, in that you feel the pulse of this singular creator behind the film. Just in the sense that Duke Mitchell created Massacre Mafia style, and in some ways you feel that while watching the film, even though it's not the case, you feel that Massacre Mafia style is some kind of wish fulfillment, that the character of Mimi and Duke Mitchell somehow merge, and that Mimi is Duke Mitchell's alter ego, and the way that he saw himself as this kind of beleaguered entertainer taking on the world and trying to conquer the world, just as Mimi conquers the mob world. The Astrologer is a film about this guy, Craig Denney, and it's you watching the film. It feels like this pseudo kind of biography of Craig Denney. It starts off with this guy. He's in a carnival and he's a fake psychic, but then he realizes that he actually has the real psychic ability, and then he gets involved with these people who are like doing diamond smuggling in like Africa or some kind of South Seas, and then he goes there and he's able to get diamonds. I don't know. The thing is, all these movies are really cloudy in my mind because I saw them so many years ago and it was late at night. It was just like the whole film festival was like a dream. So I'm going to be kind of during this video. But anyway, so he goes there. And it's like the most cheap jack, like diamond mine, like South Seas, like adventure, jungle. It looks nothing like the real thing. It's like, imagine if Dave Friedman like took a break from She-Freak and decided like, okay, I want to remake like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's some Alan Quartermain Raiders of the Lost Ark, half-ass, like in a studio with some pebbles and rocks. And some snakes. That's what it looks like. So he makes his fortune in diamonds because he gets up with this group of people that are doing diamonds, and they die, and then he has to go. And it has really, there's like these kind of ejaculations of violence, because there's a scene where he's got to shoot somebody and he shoots him and it's real violent. And then there's a scene in a bar that really reminded me of Massacre Mafia style. It's like there's lots of these musical interludes throughout the film. And the first one is in this bar where everybody's like chatting up each other. And it's like this total like 70s like Tijuana Express type of like they're listening to this music, and there's like this POV of going to the bathroom and looking in the toilet stall, the urinal. And it's just like it's like, what's going on? Where am I? What's happening? And that's the feeling that you get throughout watching The Astrologer. It's just like this strange, and it just goes on and on. And his story. So he eventually makes his way back to the States after this really elaborate scheme to hide the diamonds, and then he pays somebody to get him out. But then he told the guy to leave half this is explained in like, it takes like 5 minutes. This voiceover, Craig Denney goes on and on and on about I gave this guy half of my diamonds, and then I left half the diamonds here, and he was about to pick, and he had to pick them up on a blue moon on the second Sunday, and it just goes on, this whole protocol of how he got the diamonds out and the money and how he became rich. So then he becomes rich and famous, and he becomes like Criswell, but like a legitimate version of Criswell. He has like this astrology program on television, and he's like this world famous astrologer, and people listen to him and follow him. And there's this weird scene where he's like, oh, is trying to copy me. They're a tropic astrologer. And like he does this weird joke about tropic astrologers. And it's like, it's like, okay, it's this weird in-joke. The film is, I'm sure, full of these weird in-jokes that we'll probably never get unless we get this guy Craig Denney and put the knife to him and ask him these questions forcibly. So it just goes on from there, and he becomes this famous guy, and then he's like, I'm so famous, I'm going to make a film of my life, and I'm going to start in the carnival, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to talk. And he starts talking, and you realize that he's describing, and he says, we're going to call it The Astrologer. and you realize he's describing the beginning of the film that you've just watched. I mean, it's just so utterly meta and strange. It's like the first meta movie, like in the late 70s. This guy, Craig Denney. I keep want to say Martin Denney, that composer, that lounge composer. I don't know why. Craig Denney has figured it out in the late 70s that we will be a self-reflective, self-conscious meta generation in the early 2000s, and this is why he's doing all this stuff, right? Because he really is an astrologer. But he runs into a lot of problems with his wife. I think he wants his wife to be in the movie, but she doesn't want, and so it's the fracture of his marriage. And then things just start to fall apart. And the film, by the way, is scored by a lot of classic music tracks from the Moody Blues. A lot of, the musical, the instrumental pieces from Tuesday Afternoon and Nights in White Satin. You hear those playing in the background a lot. There's this one scene where he's triumphantly sailing back to America on this sailboat, and it's like da 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 da. It's like the Nights in White Satin instrumental kicks in. You're like, what the hell? I know that song. And then there is this great sequence where he's with his wife in a restaurant, and the marriage is dissolving. It's like the scene reminds me of the montage in Citizen Kane with Kane and his wife, where you just over a breakfast nook you see a montage of these scenes of the marriage of Kane and his wife just dissolving, and you see it in this scene, but it's not a montage. It's one continuous scene, but it's shot in slow motion where you see these people, you see close-ups of them arguing, and they're cutting between the music, and as the music reaches a crescendo, and the music is Procol Harum, Grand Hotel, and it's like, Procol Harum was, it's kind of soaring. I'm not even gonna pretend to, be Gary Brooker now, but it's like that Grand Hotel album, and it's just bombastic. It's one of the great musical sequences I've ever seen using classic rock music. So there's a lot of, it's a weird movie. It's a kind of a rags to riches, back to rags story, like a Harold Robin, like trashy 70s pulp novel type thing. But at the same time, you got Moody Blues, you've got Procol Harum, and so it's just like this weird, and it's this very heartfelt type of Duke Mitchell Massacre Mafia style vibe going throughout it, and the sense of there's these musical montages and things that it's just like right out of Massacre Mafia style, and it's just like if you're a fan of that film, you'd be definitely a fan of The Astrologer. So the second film of the Endangered Fest, kind of a palate cleanser, a blaxploitation film called Hangup, aka Super Dude. I think we were watching it under the Super Dude print. I don't know. And by the way, the print quality for The Astrologer, I just want to go back. It was incredible. It was obvious this film had not been projected in years and years and years. There was very light damage. The colors were beautiful. Hang Up was a film that had been shown at the Draft House before. I think it was shown during a Weird Wednesday or something, so it wasn't as special an event as The Astrologer. A standard blaxploitation film. The big hook to Hang Up is that it was the last film directed by Henry Hathaway, the famous film director, The Sons of Katie Elder, Niagara, True Grit. He's just a classic film director, and in the early 70s he made this blaxploitation film, which it was really a fuzzy memory for me. It was about a rookie cop and this black guy who has a woman, and she's a drug addict, and she's backsliding the prostitution, and she's going, and this guy, and David Lerner's in it, or is that Michael Lerner? I keep again forgetting his name. He's this kind of scuzzy pimp, and so it's pimps and prostitutes, and I'm not a blaxploitation connoisseur, so again, I'm maybe not the best one to do a review of that. But again, it was a good palate cleanser, which led into the third film, Ensalada Baudelaire, which was another classic, another like discovery of like, why have I not heard of this film? A Spanish film dubbed into English. The English title, which I guess it played under during its grindhouse reverie in the early 80s, was Sex and Violence. Just simply Sex and that was the title it ran under, Sex and Violence. And Ensalada Baudelaire, a Spanish film made by a Spanish director. It's about a couple who are terrorized on a boat by two other guys. And it has a knife in the water type vibe to it. So it's like Knife in the Water meets a little bit of Last House on the Left, kind of home invasion or boat invasion type thing. And it was it was just such a surprise. It's like an exploitation film, but it's European, it's dubbed, and it's shot like a European perfume commercial. It has this very slick commercial style to it that makes it kind of a unique experience, because we're used to something a little more gritty and, like Last House on the Left, a little more grittier. And this was a little more European art house. But it did have, lots of really weird, kind of BDSM type scenes in it, and, just weird stuff. The first scene is particularly odd, and I don't quite, and it has kind of, the ending is kind of like a pick your own ending. It's kind of like, well, it could end this way, but then end that way, and so it's weird, and there's also a scene where people play with their food in the film, and that was the most disturbing scene for me, because I just don't like it when people play with their food. And there's a scene where these two guys, mess with the couple, and they start making a meal, and they play with I didn't like that. That was disturbing. I think this has been released on video somewhere, because I see screenshots for it on the internet of Ensalada Baudelaire. But otherwise, I don't really think it's been. I think it's been released. Well, Pajali said he had a copy on VHS, but and I think it's been released also somehow digitally somewhere. But I don't know. But it's still, apart from this film print, probably a lost film. Which then takes us to film number 4, which was, again, by the time we're at the 4th movie in the Endangered Fest, this is like the early morning. This is like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And it was The Dirty Dolls. This is just a down and dirty, softcore romp. It's directed by, it is like the quintessential late 70s, early 80s softcore romp. Okay, directed by Stu Stegall, shot by Gary Graver, Colleen Brennan, aka Sharon Kelly, aka the redhead with the weird teeth, is in it. John Alderman's in it. And if you don't know those names, you're probably a very well-adjusted individual, and you don't need to. And Buck Flowers has a cameo too, so you probably know Buck Flowers, right? Okay, there you go. Buck Flowers, Escape from New York, Pumpkinhead. It's a long ways from Escape from New York and Pumpkinhead. This film is firmly in Buck Flowers, the grindhouse, pseudo X-rated era of the Buck Flowers career trajectory. It's basically a film about a group of girls who get together, and they're a team and they're run by this one dude, and this dude tells them what to do, and under his direction they rob a bank, and they kidnap the security guards, and then they end up having sex with the security guards and tying them up, and then and there's this big drama between, do we kill the security guard, do we let them live, do we make love to them, blah blah blah, put the security guards out in a shed behind the house, and fun ensues. So it's again a softcore movie. It just goes on for the bumping and grinding for minutes and minutes and minutes of this moaning and bumping and it's just it's like 5 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday. You just feel dirty, and Colleen Brennan, as I said, was in it, and so there's some X-rated performers in it, but it's not X-rated, and there's always some some seedy stuff. Like the guy who's running the thing is the brother of one of the main girls, and there's a bed scene with her, so there's that incest element. So I mean, again, very kind of seedy, but again, well shot, because it's shot by Gary Graver, who worked in X-rated films, but he was also Orson Welles' cinematographer. He shot F is for Fake and all that stuff, all those films that Orson Welles never really finished. He was all a part of that. So technically the film is very good, but otherwise, unless you're one of those guys who was into those men's magazines of the 70s where they'd have like these photo layouts of these type of films, it's not really a well-known film, and I don't think ever been released on video. I don't know. It's a prime candidate for Vinegar Syndrome. Vinegar Syndrome, the company, not the actual Vinegar Syndrome. Well, I guess it probably is too, for the Vinegar Syndrome film process. But otherwise, that was it. And then they let us loose into the morning of Sunday, changed people, and that was it. So the Astrologer, Hangup, Ensalada Baudelaire, and the Dirty Dolls. What will show in this year's Endangered Fest? Who knows? I don't know. We have no clue, and that's part of the exploration and the surprise and the fun of it all. So there it is, Endangered Fest in Austin. Probably by the time you've seen this video, it's over. But if by chance you are seeing this video, and it's not, then definitely go to it, and I'll see you there, I guess.